My name is Harry Lyons. I am your representative, Kelseyville's representative to the Resource Conservation District. And I'm here to do my favorite thing in the world, that is sip a little beer, talk about Clear Lake among friends. Okay, so we'll get started. You had the news, Terry had the news. Here's the news from Clear Lake. It's just a rapid update 2 hours ago. What we've got going on in Clear Lake is a bloom or phenomenal growth of Dolichosporum, okay? And it's growing to such an extent that the wind has now drifted it in towards the shoreline. And where I live in Jago Bay, there are giant mats of green, bluish-green goop. And the blue-green algae, or the cyanobacteria, have started to die. And what happens when they die is that they turn white. And then after a while, the constituents of their cells takes on a blue hue. So if you're looking at the lake this year, and you see patches of light blue, patches of white, and patches of blue-green, that's what's going on. Dead cyanobacteria. And the cyanobacteria do really well when there's a lot of phosphorus and when there's heat. And the long-range forecast for the 21st century is lots of heat and lots of phosphorus. So what we are becoming aware of is a budget. And you people are business people, and I assume you're getting ready your fiscal budget for fiscal 26-27. You came to have lunch thinking I was going to talk about natural history, but no, I'm talking about another budget, and this is the phosphorus budget. In the springtime, there's not a lot of phosphorus, and it's not so hot. So what happens is the cyanobacteria, which plague us and cause harmful blooms, haven't arrived in any number yet, and the system is controlled by, and the photosynthesis is produced by these true algae, okay? So these are the golden brown algae, the green algae, the red algae, so on and so forth. They compete very well for phosphorus. So when the phosphorus is low in the winter and in the spring, they do well and the blue-greens don't show up. But the phosphorus fluxes into the lake in the summertime, and that's why we have these giant blooms. So the blue-greens have several advantages. The most important one is that they can fix nitrogen. So I assume some of you are gardeners and you plant peas and beans because those plants fix nitrogen. They take nitrogen from the atmosphere and they convert it to ammonia, which they can use in their metabolism. It's always important to time a professor. Okay, so I got that going. So essentially, these forms, given plenty of phosphorus, can grow in such a way that they can get from the atmosphere all the nitrogen they need. Okay, so that's an important part to know in the phosphorus budget story. These are called nitrogen fixers. And all of the plants in the world are called carbon fixers because they make carbon in a usable form for you and I and all other animals and heterotrophic organisms. So they can fix carbon, that's another term for photosynthesis, but they also can mix nitrogen to help them to do that. So let's get to the budget. And this is the Clear Lake phosphorus budget. This is a budget proposed on really hard-fought data from the University of California, Davis, from the United States Geological Survey. And what the budget proposes and what it shows is that in my presentations for the last 30 years on Clear Lake, I've been kind of wrong. And so I have to choose between being dishonest and ignoring the fact that the data are contradictory to my view, or I can be stupid and not recognize that the data are contradictory to my view. So I'd rather be neither and just admit that I was wrong about this. I painted a story for you year after year that the problem with Clear Lake was the edges. That if we kept the edges green and that we established wetlands around the lake, we could stop the flow of phosphorus in from the watershed, okay? And that's true. You can reduce the phosphorus coming in from the watershed. We've done a pretty good job. But what the University of California, Davis found out was that in any particular year in the 21st century, the phosphorus that's the problem is the phosphorus that is already there, okay? So it's nice that I have fought to reduce the phosphorus coming into the system, but at the present and for the rest of the century, the problem is the phosphorus that's already snuck in, all right? And what I'm going to do is eventually get around to pilot projects that the Blue River Committee for the Restoration of Clear Lake have proposed. They're pilot projects to see what you can do about phosphorus that is in the system. This phosphorus is called inloading, and the phosphorus from the watershed is called outloading, okay? So I'm an outloading fan. I still want to keep the phosphorus from coming into the system. And that's important for the future. It's important for posterity. And when I tell the people at UC Davis about that, I'm concerned about posterity. The most cynical of them say, posterity? What has posterity done for us? Okay, so that's their view. Okay, so here we are. And you know about the lake in the horizontal. You know there's three arms, the upper arm, the lower arm, and the Oaks arm. But I need to think like an oceanographer or a limnologist, okay? Limnologist is an oceanographer that works in fresh water. To think like an oceanographer, you have to think in the vertical. So I don't see these arms when I think about the phosphorus budget. I see an upper layer and a lower layer. Of course, I'm a scientist. I can't say the upper lake and the lower lake for two reasons. It's too simple. It's too easy to pronounce. And also lower lake is another place. And I say lower lake, you think I mean where my wife and my daughter grew up. So the epilimnion is the upper layer. Epi as an EpiPen, which is a shallow needle. And the bottom of the lake is called the hypolimnion, like hypodermic needle, which is a deep needle. Okay. So the epilimnion is where photosynthesis occurs. It's where all the cyanobacteria take off. That's where we get our blooms, and that's where we use nutrients. We use nutrients and fix carbon in a massive amounts. There are very few wet ecosystems that photosynthesize at the rate that Clear Lake does. It's amazing. It's a pain in the ass, but it remains amazing, the growth of the plants in the water. So upstairs, what you have is photosynthesis, you have use of nutrients, and downstairs, what you have is the release of nutrients. And this is what UC Davis has been looking at. The actual process of release of this incredible bank of phosphorus that's in the sediments below the hypolimnion. So the basic cycle that occurs in Clear Lake, and we've known this for years, is mixing that brings up nutrients from near the bottom up to the surface, and then the calmness that allows the water to become stationary, sunlight and the available nutrients lead to a bloom, a massive growth of the cyanobacteria, and then just about when it's extinguished the nutrients and is about to relax, the wind comes up again and stirs in more nutrients. What Davis added to this story is this, that while the lake is calm, when there's not a lot of mixing going on, the use of oxygen in the hypolimnion is sizable. All the algae that has died and has fallen down in the water column begins to rot. And the rotting process involves good old standard decomposing bacteria. And they use all the oxygen. And when they use the oxygen, they get the oxygen down below 3.5 milligrams per liter. That's on the test. See if we remember that. 3.5 milligrams per liter. That means that the hypolimnion is hypoxic. And it also means that the sediments where the phosphorus is anoxic. In other words, we have 3.5 in the water in the lower layer of the lake, but at the sediments, we have 0. So what happens with that is the chemistry of the phosphorus compounds in the sediment granules shifts, and the phosphorus is released into the water. So what I'm saying is, when a lake is calm, you can't relax because the oxygen is dropped in the bottom and the phosphorus is being released from this huge bank of phosphorus in the sediments. And then when the lake is windy, you can't relax because that's coming up for eventual use by the cyanobacteria. When can you relax about cyanobacteria? 2 times. 1, in the winter and spring, when it's hard to swim. And the second time is when the wind just happens to favor where you live. Even in the worst days, there's a cove someplace where the wind is shifting this algae in one direction, and you have a day or 2 to enjoy some swimming. And that, to me, defines Lake County life. If somebody calls you, they have a job for you, you say, I'm sorry, I'm indisposed. I'm swimming today. So this system is what the University of California has come up with. It involves a drop in oxygen, which you'll know about, because the oxygen not only shifts the chemistry of the sediments to release the phosphorus, it kills the threadfin shad. Sometimes it kills catfish and other fish. So you go along the lakeshore and you see dead fish. It's because they ran out of oxygen, because they were down below in the low water, and that's where the oxygen runs out. In rainy years, the hypolimnium, the whole lake is bigger, and so the hypolimnium is bigger. It takes a longer time for the oxygen to run out. So we generally get a better year. Nice wet years are a little better. And the dry years, the hypolimnium is small, and the oxygen runs out fairly quick. So you have another shift that you have to keep track of. And the caution here is this involves fractions, okay? So if you keep track of, in any lake, the ratio of nitrogen to phosphorus, and if it's phosphorus rich, this ratio will be small, right? If it's phosphorus poor, this ratio will be large. That's the way that denominators work. Okay, that's the way the denominators work. So what we have in Clear Lake is a situation where there's tons of phosphorus, so this ratio is very small. It's less than 20 to 1. Sometimes it's less than 16 to 1. And that encourages the growth of the cyanobacteria, because the nitrogen is deficient compared to the phosphorus. And I told you 5 minutes ago that the cyanobacteria can get all the nitrogen they need from the atmosphere. So what happens is whatever normal algae is left over is outcompeted by these nitrogen-fixing cyanobacteria. So here are the numbers. Watershed brings in 7 to 16 tons of phosphorus. Outflow in Cache Creek, 6 to 80 tons. I've averaged these years. And the internal load from the sediments is a whopping 411 to 626 tons. So we estimate that 95% of the phosphorus that is in Clear Lake and is available for plants is coming from the bottom. Okay, so this is the trouble. So the Blue Ribbon Committee for the restoration of Clear Lake have come up with a lot of actions, some small, some big. I'm giving you the big ones here. These are pilot projects, and what I've done is I told you who's doing the project, what percentage of the lake it involves, and how much money is involved. Sometimes this is the money from the Blue Ribbon Committee. This comes from Proposition 4, which the voters of California were kind enough to vote in. It has to do with climate change, adapting to climate change, and one of the ways you and I have to adapt to climate change is to deal with the cyanobacteria and the eutrophication, or the enrichment of lakes, not only in Clear Lake, all around the world. lakes are going to get greener. And so some of this money came from people realizing that if you want to study green lakes, Clear Lake is the place to do it. So we have some great scientists and some great companies, and some people are making money here. So this business is involved with this too. So there's 5 things. I've got 4 here, and then this is like breaking news. I had to adapt, PowerPoint, you go in and this is crayon point. So this is how you edit crayon point. Just tape this here. This is a new approach down here. It just got funded about 3 months ago. All right, so here we go. We have the harvest, the blanket, the sound, the bubble, and then the one that was just added, I'm calling the nano, okay? And these are your tax dollars at work. So you're paying for this. The first one is the harvest. This is from AECOM. AECOM wants to filter the water off of the city of Clear Lake. So this is in Clear Lake, and it's going to involve just a few acres. So they will actually purify, if you want. I wouldn't use that term, but they're going to decyanobacterialize an acre or two around Redbud Park, and that will amount to 0.001% of the lake, 1,000th of a percent of the lake. But they're gonna get it clean of cyanobacteria. They're sucking it up, they're filtering it off, and then they're exporting it. Does this influence the phosphorus? Yes, because the cyanobacteria are loaded with phosphorus, and so are just taking them out. What are they doing with the material that they take out of the water? They're chucking it away, and it will be used for compost. But it's mostly water, so it takes quite a bit of effort to compost it. They have a research project to try to convert it to a fuel, because it's fixed carbon. It's like gasoline. It's a carbon-hydrogen compound, and it's got a lot of energy in it. So good luck to them on that. $1.5 million, 0.001% of the lake, filtering it off. We're harvesting the plankton, okay? And the nitrogen and the phosphorus that the plankton contain. Next comes the blanket. This one's already started. Okay, this is one that started it is in the North Shore, Nice and Lucerne. And what's happening is they are releasing to float down to the bottom bentonite. And bentonite is a really, really fine clay. It's used in vineyard reservoirs in Big Valley, okay? And I experienced with bentonite, just coat something, it's really, really fine clay, not much water can get through. But in this case, they've added the 57th element in the periodic table, one I never heard of till I studied this project, lanthanum, okay? So there's a rare earth element called lanthanum, and I only know one thing about it. It loves phosphorus. It just loves phosphorus. And so it connects the phosphorus, it connects with the phosphorus, ties it up, and then it's unavailable for the hypolimnion. Okay, that's the blanket. $3 million, big portion of the lake in terms of the other studies, 7%. And again, in the North Shore, already started. Picture Jim Steele on a boat, following them, looking at it, taking off. Okay, next comes the sound, okay? This is LG Sonic, and these involve buoys, and there's buoys that emit ultrasound, sound that's so high-pitched you and I can't hear it, but sound that is of low enough amplitude, that is strength, so that it doesn't hurt or damage or in any way harm the fish and the larger invertebrates. So these are going to shake those cyanobacteria or bust the internal structures that they have that allow them to float up and down in the water column. One of the things about the cyanobacteria, they can come up and they can go down just by inflating structures in their cells. And what this does is it busts those structures. So all the cyanobacteria are forced down out of the sunlit zone, out of the epilimnion, into the hypolimnion, and there they photosynthesize very slowly, and they don't present us a problem, okay? That's the sound. Next, University of California, UC Davis. Wait a minute, let's go with LG Sonic. This is 1.6% of the lake, 20 of these buoys would cover 1.6% of the lake, It's $1.5 million. This one, the bubbler, is UC Davis. It's $3 million, 7% of the lake. So it's a big project. It's equal to the coverage of the Eutrophix bentonite approach. And the bubbler is truckloads of pure oxygen that are bubbled in the bottom to create an environment that is not necessarily oxygen rich, but much more oxygen than this hypoxic value. And so this is the bubbler, UC Davis, and then finally, and most recently, Moliar Corporation. Yeah.
Where is the bubbler deployed at?
The bubbler is, thank you. The bubbler is going to be deployed in the Oaks Arm. And and so the Oaks Arm, where that they chose the smallest arm, and they want to have an influence on quite a bit of the Oaks Arm. Okay, Sonic, I should have said, is also in Clear Lake, but in a different spot than the filter. Good question. All right, so Moliar, right off the bat, I'll tell you, this is going to be in Soda Bay, and it involves taking. You don't truck any oxygen in. What happens is they have these rafts with the machinery on the raft. You see I have a plug in here. This is electrical, so there's juice from the shoreline. And it takes in the atmosphere. The atmosphere, as you know, is 80% nitrogen and 20% oxygen. There's a few other gases in there, but including CO2. But the nitrogen and the oxygen from the atmosphere goes into this machine. It kicks out the nitrogen, and it converts some of the oxygen that remains into ozone. Now, ozone is a form of oxygen that is composed of 3 oxygen atoms together. Ozone is a great problem in the troposphere where we live, and it's a great help in the stratosphere where we don't live, but where it blocks ultraviolet light. So the ozone is famous, and ozone is just released, but it's released as nano bubbles. A nanometer is a billionth, right? You're going to help me on this. Thanks. A nanometer is a billionth of a meter, and the micrometer is a millionth, millimeter is 1,000th, and then a meter, I'm happy to tell you, is the different distance between Louis XIV's nose and his index finger when he does this, okay? That was the original definition. So you just take a billionth of Louis XIV and you got an idea how small these are. So it's going to cost $3 million, and it'll do 1% of the lake in the vicinity of Soda Bay. Okay, I'm pretty much out of time. I just want to wrap up by telling you all of this, if you're interested in this, all of this is explained better and more extensively on the resources page of the California government, and also in UC Davis page that has to do with the work for the Blue Ribbon Committee. Okay. Private concerns and the university have assured us that this doesn't damage the system. And Clear Lake and its inhabitants are tough, okay? This one is happening. This one is happening. This one will happen probably early autumn. This one, maybe in a year or two. This one, maybe in a year or two, because it got funding a little later, okay?
So in 2030, are they all just going to go away?
Yes, and that's the other thing. They all go away, and the state, the resource development part of the state says, okay, it's up to you, Lake County, okay? So this is a very good political thing. There's another political point I want to make with your question. I said Lakeport doesn't have anything. This committee, this Blue Ribbon Committee, it's not only a scientific committee, it's a sociological and economic one, right? I said, well, why don't you put it in Lakeport? And they said, oh, no, that's not a good spot for the experiment, okay? So they rightfully are thinking like scientists. Since I'm retired, I'm allowed to think like a sociologist and a politician. I thought, gee, you ought to have something in Lakeport. I'm pretty sure it's the science that drives this stuff. The other thing is people want this. there are people that want to have that in their neighborhood. They want to see it. They want to be involved. So there's a balance between the right to fight and the right to not fight. Okay, so yeah, but it's a good point. But this lake is a tough old lady, and she'll take quite a bit. And she may be the place where, for the rest of the world, we figure out how to do this. She is the place where the world learned about biomagnification in mercury and in pesticides. So it should probably serve a purpose again and be very useful for the world scientific community. There are some funds from the Blue Ribbon Committee for stream restoration, okay? And for, there's a great concern about the hitch. So that involves putting in tules and putting in fish ladders and cleaning up the streams a little bit, making them more functional. So that's part of it. Yeah, there is, but the main thrust is the marsh in Middle Creek, and that's the Army Corps. That's federal dollars. That's slow-mo. It's a complicated real estate deal on top of a giant agency. So it's slow going. There's push from the county. The county's been really good in picking up on the Middle Creek work. And there's small pushes from the tribes and from the land trust. And so the land trust is buying up choice pieces of wetland, and the tribes they're raising hitch. They're reconstructing creeks for the benefit of the hitch. So there's this little stuff that's being done. And the basic lesson for me, what I always tell my students is, don't worry what you're doing is little, you got to do it anyway, okay? So what UC Davis told me was, in my view, what the problem was, they told me, Harry, it's too late. It's too late, okay? And I don't ever think that anything's too late. You try anyway. And so there's small countywide efforts, land trusts, tribes, county Middle Creek Committee, they're pushing. And this stuff is there's a lot of politics involved with this too, as you know, right? So the folks that are doing this, they have lots of histories of using it elsewhere.
Yeah.
Okay. And so it's not the first time for any of these technologies, right? So they kind of know what to expect. But I really am impressed with the concern. I'm impressed with the biological concern and the political concern and so on and so forth. It's really important. I'm happy that I was here. There's clearer, more detailed presentations that can be made, for sure.
Like valves.
Yeah.
Valves.
Yeah. I usually sing a cute little song about the biology, but I'm going to sing.
You got 4 minutes.
I have 5 minutes? That's 12. 12 minutes, okay.
You can sing a whole bunch.
And so I'm 78. I don't remember the lyrics, but I remember where I put the lyrics. See, this is how this all works. There they are. Despite it belies the size of the song, of course, but at any rate, there's a portion of this song. The song is called Soda Bay Road. Well, I know a place where the red-winged blackbirds are thicker than in a pie. Crooked little roads around an emerald green lake where pears were the apples in people's eyes. Now the smell of algae when the breeze is right comes drifting in off a clear lake. And it's the sound of exhaust and it seems like frost might add a little wrath to the grapes, what it takes down on Soda Bay Road. Now there's an old man on the lake and his hands in a shake. He's been out there fishing for trout. He's been out there for years with his eyes full of tears, thinking that his flies lack the clout. I say, old man, feeling low, you gotta fish the right fish, you know, and you need to know where it's at. I said, the trout here is slow, they're kinda chubby, you know, they got whiskers and they look like a cat, tell them catfish roll. I can smell it frying down on Soda Bay Road. Then there's an Oakland Okie with his engine smoky. He comes tooling in on his hot boat. His wife's love handles and cork-lined sandals. I think she could float. They're stinking of gin and they come tooling in to Canocti Harbor at night. She wants to shake her shoulder to the old rock and rollers. She's over 60, but to me, man, she is still out of sight. And if Joe Mazzola had known what Greg Bennett had shown, that those old cats could play, and that people would pay. So there's a cat in a Mercedes with two foxy ladies. He comes tooling in on State 29. He says, I get car sick, can you tell me, hick, is there a way out of here that is fine? I say, yeah, sure, you can get out of these hills without popping pills. Matter of fact, you got it made. I said, why don't you follow those signs that say 175? I sent them up the Hopland grade. Okay, you take a 175. I hope you make it back to Corte Madera alive. Hey, Jago Bay, the sun bakes all day. Cyanobacteria that have died on the top. And I lived in that stink, and my eyes turned bright pink till October when the rains make it stop. Now to swim through that slime is less than sublime, and that and the beer make me mean. But sometimes I have patience, cause the life forms are ancients. It's kinda awesome when it turns sun of green, green goopy tears. These forms have been fixing carbon for 2 billion years. And evolution can be fine. You just have to give it, you have to give it a lot of time. Now to increase my bounty, I leave the county. I play jazz music in a downtown haze. For these fat chords I know I make pretty good dough, but those are not my favorite days. Cause when the wind comes up here, green caps appear. On the deck of the lake, it's the deal. And if you've got a small boat, you put some canvas afloat, lean out and even your keel. Me and my daughter, we're cutting through the water on a sloop named Kathleen McGowan. We knock on her Irish wood just like we should and wonder where in the wind are we going. Well, we tacked to Dawn Bay, but the wind had its way. We're running hard for Soda Bay. I say, Kate, pull on that tiller, the mainsail, let's tiller. Let's leave these pelicans in our lee. Cause there's no place funnier, and there's no place sunnier, and there's no place that I'd rather be than down Manning Creek where the hitch never sleep, down Adobe Creek where the willows weep, down Kelsey Creek where the gamblers reap, down Scotts Creek with its snake-like course unique. It's down all those creeks and the water beneath, flowing so green and that makes it keen, flowing so keen and that makes it green for the people on Soda Bay Road. Thank you, thank you, thank you. All right, thank you, Peter.